Hello everybody, welcome on in. Zenimax dropped a dev tracker yesterday, and in it they included some of the changes that will be coming with the public test server that's coming up for update 35. They didn't include all the changes. We won't see them until we actually see the patch notes for the public test server, but they gave us a little bit of a taste of what's to come. So they start off by saying this update brings a massive slew of balance adjustments all at once to hopefully reduce the need of large sweeping changes in subsequent updates. If you guys have played ESO for a long time, you know that Zenimax often does balance with a massive slew of adjustments. So I'm not going to hold my breath that that's not what we're going to see going after this patch either. That's just kind of been Zenimax's MO, and it would be weird to see them actually change from it. So what is the first change that we can expect to see? Well, it's a change to weaving. If you guys don't know what weaving is, it is basically the act of animation canceling your light and heavy attacks in between the global cooldowns of your active skills. So you do something like a light attack, and then you follow it up with a crushing shock, and then another light attack followed by the crushing shock, and it allows you to weave the light attacks in between the global cooldown of the crushing shocks, giving you a bit of an increase in your damage. Now, Zenimax says that this drastically increases the agency and output. It is a staple of the game that they've come to embrace, as it helps combat feel different to participate in once you've learned the ins and outs. And I'll come back to this statement in just a moment. Now, they go on to say afterwards that the impact of weaving has led to a massive gap in performance, where players who cannot interact with it as effectively are left miles behind those who can. And their target in this particular change is going to be light and heavy attack weaving. So what can we expect to see from Zenimax? Well, they said they want to reduce the light and heavy attacks impact in damage production by adjusting their damage to be a flat amount regardless of your character's stats. So this means if you are on a glass cannon Nightblade and a full tank Necromancer, you will have the same amount of light and heavy attack damage on those characters. So it's a huge homogenization in how light and heavy attack are used in this game. And then they go on to say that they have investigated the baseline experience that a new player would have with these attacks, and that they are aiming not to change the low-end experience, but the high-end experience. So basically what they're saying is they want to bring down the skill ceiling so that newer players don't feel like it's too hard. And I understand that to a degree, but let's get into how they have actually made these changes. So not only are they going to be a flat amount regardless of stats, but the average build will see in their calculations here, roughly a 15 to 20% of their overall damage coming from light attacks alone, which is a huge contribution to the delta of power that we see. While testing these adjustments internally, we see a reduction of 6 to 11% to overall damage, which allows for a much smaller and healthier gap while retaining the sense of mastery and expression of that mastery when weaving. With this adjustment, they'll also be making significant adjustments to item sets, passives, and buffs to ensure that they remain balanced in damage production. But yeah, basically they want to make weaving much less useful than it is right now. So this brings me back to the original statement that I wanted to come back to, where they mentioned that weaving is a staple of this game that they've come to embrace, as it helps combat feel different and exciting to participate in once you learn the ins and outs. If they are going to have such a heavy nerf, and I'm talking like 50% plus damage reduction to light and heavy attacks, you can bet that this is not going to make combat feel better. Part of why weaving feels good is because your light and heavy attacks actually do something. If they significantly reduce the damage that they can do, there's almost no point to even bothering to weave anymore. Now, I get that that's kind of the goal here. They want it so that newer players feel like it's easier to compete against more experienced players. But quite frankly, I don't think that this is the right change at all. In fact, I'm very angry to see this change here. It is really maddening as a PvP player to see Zenimax just tear strips out of the skill ceiling with a change like this. And quite frankly, I think the reason that newer players maybe don't weave is because at no point in this game does Zenimax give you the rundown on how to actually light attack cancel. There isn't a tutorial, there isn't anything where they show you how to actually interact with the weaving in this game. So I feel like more often than not, when a player isn't weaving, it's not because they physically can't. Weaving is a very easy thing to do. It's because they don't know how, because they've never been told or taught by the game. On top of it, making a change like this is a huge slap to build crafting. What is the point of investing in a damage build? What is the point of skills like Empower if you're just going to flat nerf the light and heavy attack damage to be a static value? They don't have a point anymore. I mean, it is such a drastic change to the game, I don't even know what to say. It's like they've made light and heavy attacks almost useless. And I have to go on the PTS, of course, to test it and see the values, but from the numbers they're showing here, you're going to have a 6 to 11% reduction to overall damage from the 15 to 20% you had before. That is easily 50% plus reduction in effectiveness for your light and heavy attacks, and even more so if you're playing a higher damage build. Now, this is one where I gotta say, Zenimax, this is a step in the wrong direction. This is too much of a tear out of the skill ceiling, and you're replacing it with a system that, quite frankly, I don't even think will help players that don't know how to play properly. A lot of times when players don't weave properly, they don't know how to do much properly. They have a build that doesn't have the sustain to spam skills, so they do a lot of light attack spamming in between their abilities, and this is just going to hurt their DPS even more. So at the bottom end of things, it seems to me like Zenimax has taken a completely wrong approach to this by nerfing the effectiveness of light and heavy attacks instead of teaching the player base how to actually interact and do it. And for me, this entire part where they go on to explain why and what they want to do to light and heavy attacks seems so contradictory to the first statement they make that weaving is a staple of the game that they've come to embrace. It does not seem like you're embracing this change if you're nerfing it into oblivion to the point where there's almost no point in even doing it. I don't know what to say past that. This is a very frustrating change to see from Zenimax, but I've seen a lot of weird changes from them, and quite frankly, I'm not even kind of surprised. But before I get too worked up, let's move on to the combat effects, the next thing that they're going to be changing. So these changes are going to target things like buffs and debuffs and damage over time and healing over time abilities. Their goal here is to increase the duration of these sorts of things, but decrease the effectiveness of them by a degree. They say that currently many of these abilities fall within a 10-second window, meaning that to maximize the efficiency, you must activate them once every 10 seconds. So their plan is to increase the duration of many of these damage over time buffs and debuff effects, and I'm guessing some of the healing over time effects as well. By increasing the duration, they hope to reduce the stress of many combat situations, allowing you to focus more on the action in front of you rather than juggling buffs and debuffs on your ability bar to make the game far more accessible. Now, I actually like this change. I think this is a step in the right direction for sure, because a big part of PvP combat especially is constantly cycling the buffs and debuffs that you need in order to be effective in combat. So in a way, this will take some of that away. So in the changes they outline for at least damage over time, they talk how right now a damage over time effect would deal 1.5 times the damage of a spammable attack over the duration of 10 seconds, or 0.15 relative damage per a second. The change they want to make will... So with the changes, damage over time effects... So with the changes, the same damage over time effect will now last for 20 seconds, and they will increase... So with these changes, the same damage over time effect will now last for 20 seconds, and it will deal 0.1 damage per a second. So in short, they are doubling the duration of dots and nerfing the effectiveness of each individual tick by about 33%. Now, this is going to be quite a bit of a pass over all the abilities. There's a lot of different dots, a lot of different buffs in the game, etc. So we're going to see a ton of changes to this stuff on the PTS. But in general, I'm actually kind of a fan of the changes to the combat effects. I do think that this is the right step in the right direction to make combat feel more engaging and less like you're constantly juggling buffs. But I still stand by what I said about the light and heavy attack changes. We do not need to strip the skill ceiling away from this game anymore. I mean, Oaken Soul Ring was added to the game, and that alone was a huge chunk out of the skill ceiling, and now they want to do stuff like this. For me, this is really worrying for the future of ESO. Maybe not for PvE, but for PvP specifically. This is going to be a huge hit to people that have spent a lot of time practicing and playing this game. They're just going to feel like the things that they've practiced are just not even really worth doing anymore. And then they go on to say that they are posting this to provide some clarity for the upcoming goals, etc., etc., as they try to improve the game and stuff like that. Now, I am not a fan. I think I've made that pretty clear, especially with some of the changes that are coming here. Here is a post from React Faster, who is a PvP player I've known for a very long time. Really excellent player. He plays on PC/NA. He's played on Xbox as well. And yeah, I'm going to read out the whole thing he puts here. Well, this to me sounds like the nail in the coffin for ESO combat as we enjoy it currently. It is truly a shame that Zenimax felt the need to tear down the skill ceiling time and time again. And now it seems to be targeting the core mechanics that veteran players have appreciated for 8 years. Accessibility is great, but not when it completely nullifies the effort and practice of veteran players that have supported this game for its entire life cycle. This paragraph right here hits the nail right on the head. I mean, he couldn't have said it better. Gilliam, what you're proposing here seems like it's being done with little to no regard for the PvP side of the game, like many of the changes made in the recent years. These changes would create a drastically different PvP environment where the already small skill gap becomes nearly non-existent. You mentioned that you'd be paying attention to the PTS feedback closely, but the wording of your post seems so definite that I have no delusions that these changes will be going live regardless of what the community thinks. Yeah, all I can say is, React, I think you're right. I think everything you said here is 100% correct. These changes do seem like they are with complete disregard to the PvP side of the game, and I don't think anything that we say or do about these changes will convince Zenimax to not push some of them forward. Either way, guys, I can just say I'm not looking forward to jumping on that PTS. I am scared. I'm actually scared for the future of combat. This has been one of the most drastic and short-sighted changes I think I have ever seen from Zenimax, and I really, really, really hope, just for once, they listen to their PvP community on this one. As always, I would love to hear what you guys think about this. I know I'm a PvP content creator, and a lot of you guys that watch are PvP players, or at least PvP enthusiasts, so what do you think? Please let me know, and let Zenimax know. More than anything, let Zenimax know what you think about this. And I guess I'm just going to end the video like that. I'll put my socials up if you guys want to catch me on Twitch, Twitter, whatever. Send in clips for the top 5. It's all there so you can read it. But yeah, I'm just kind of still reeling from the shock. Thank you guys for tuning in. A big thank you to our sponsor, What the Fast. A big thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon. As always, I hope that you guys at least enjoyed the video or got something out of it, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.